Oh, there's Mount Leck.
Hope it doesn't fall down.
I don't care anymore. It's not mine.
Oh, okay. Who'd you sell it to?
I don't know. I never saw the guy.
Oh,
All I know is I got his check. That's all I care about.
that's all. That's all that matters.
Good morning, everybody. Looks like just about everybody here. For those that don't know me, my name is Steve Fitzgerald. I'm a Senior Associate Athletic Director at Stonehill College. I'm the President of the Executive Board of the NEICAAA. And we just wanted to welcome you all here today. We recognize that it is an exceptionally challenging time, especially for those of us on campus and working with student athletes. So appreciate you joining us today in a non-traditional way. I wanted to go through a few pieces of sort of logistics for our virtual convention. We will do roll call. We'll take an attendance through the chat feature, so we won't do a traditional roll call. You'll notice it's a standard Zoom here. It's your convention. We wanted to make sure there was no webinar, auto mute, anything like that. I want folks to be able to speak when they have something to say. With that in mind, however, just a gentle reminder, if you're not speaking, if you could stay on mute, that would be helpful. Voting today, we'll do a voice vote. If necessary, we will do the chat feature or a roll call vote, but believe we can do everything via voice vote. And the convention's also being recorded. It will be available on our website through social media for your staff or anyone who can't be in attendance today. Just, Erwin, I don't know if you want me to start with a few quick updates on what we've been doing as an executive board, and then we can jump into the agenda.
Yeah, go ahead.
We've spent, a great deal of time over the last 6 months or so meeting and have a real recognition that there are some fiscal and logistical challenges that face all of us in higher education right now, and we've tried to focus on how our association can be a part of the solution there and can promote and provide championship competition for our entire membership. I think we really have an opportunity to highlight the regional nature of what we do and how we're made up to provide an affordable championship level opportunity for all three divisions. We will be reaching out to folks to put together a working group made up of representatives of all divisions, just to see how we can best serve our membership in this time. And also wanted to make note that we recognize that COVID-19 has changed all of our worlds, and we're continuing to assess what that looks like. Erwin will touch on that for our future indoor championship and, of course, what's happened with cross country. For anyone who is experiencing their institutions who may be experiencing financial challenges, please reach out to Erwin to discuss membership dues. Some other pieces that we've tried to focus on, have been some archiving projects, really focusing on our past. We're a unique and historic association, and there's been an elite level of competition. With a new website that we'll discuss later, it's a great opportunity to highlight that past history and again, that elite level of championship competition. We've also spent a great deal of time talking about our present, and we're creating a championship manual with some host expectations. We hope that will help us to implement a more effective and consistent experience for our membership when you come to a cross country or indoor or outdoor championship. And then finally, we've talked through who we are and where we're going, and focused on a marketing campaign that includes a website upgrade, a mission statement, and ways that we can continue to leverage our position within the cross country and track and field community to help long-term sustainability of the sport and our association. A quick note on the website, just want to thank Pete Shooter for all the work that he has done, and also especially thank Ruben Sansa from our executive board. He has done yeoman's work over the last 3 months in building out our new website. With that, love to jump into our agenda here, and Erwin, I can turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. I'd like to welcome everybody here today, and I want to thank the executive committee for being there, because it's always bothered me as a so-called commissioner that there's never been any oversight as to what my activities and what I do. And having been a former administrator, I've always welcomed and wanted oversight, and I'm glad finally we have that now under Steve's leadership and the executive committee to keep an eye on me, because certainly I need it. But in future situations, it should be something that's in line with what we're trying to do and trying to keep going. So, Steve, thank you, and members of the executive committee, Ruben and Dave Fraser, and of course Chris and John as track coaches. I feel much better now. In the past, all we've really had is an auditor who checks the books, but once again, that's not enough. So now we do have oversight, and I feel much better about it. To those of you who've sent in certification forms from your athletic directors, we're going to waive that today, only because this being the type of meeting we're having, it's not a really necessary situation. But I'd like to thank the people that did send them in, but once again, we're not going to need them. I sent out, and I'm giving an overview now before we actually get into the actual agenda, but I sent out invoices for dues, and fortunately or unfortunately, many schools have paid them. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Right now, obviously the cross-country meet has been canceled, but indoors is still a possibility. I spoke with Sherman Hart, the director of the Reggie Lewis Center, and right now he has a schedule. And depending on what the ramifications are as far as what the state leadership is concerned regarding what we can do and how many people can participate and the procedures for doing that, right now it's still scheduled, and hopefully we'll have it. But certainly the spring looks like a more viable option, and we're hoping we'll have that. But once again, once we decide on where we're going and what transcribes as far as the season is concerned, we can make a better picture and assessment of the dues situation. I'm certainly not going to send out any leg breakers or people collection trying to collect the dues. So if schools pay, and a lot of schools have, that's fine. And those who haven't, well, once again, when we decide where we're going and what we have and what expenses we have, we can make some mitigation as far as the dues situation is concerned. We have 3 levels of dues payment anyway, depending on the level of your programs. So it's not something that we haven't done in the past, but we'll sort of just hold off on that until we know where we're going and what we're going to do. We still have to talk about an outdoor site. Last year was scheduled for the Northeast, and we don't know what's going to transpire as far as this year is concerned, but certainly we can get ahead with that. So with that in mind, I'd like to return to the agenda and take up some of the things which certainly shouldn't be much of a situation. One is the executive committee has put forward their typical slate of offices for President Steve Fitzgerald, Vice President David Fraser, Second Vice President Ruben Sanker, Executive Committee John Copeland, the University of Rhode Island, and Chris Moore at Tufts. So without further ado, unless I hear an objection, I can assume that slate of officers has been accepted. Not hearing any negative situations, I'll assume that has transpired. As far as the approval of last year's convention, in your original notice that I sent out, I put a copy of the dues in, and Ruben, I would hope that from now on we can put our dues, our minutes of the meeting on the website. So once again, if I don't hear any objections, I can assume that the without any corrections or omissions, I can assume that we can accept the minutes from last year's meeting at Holy Cross. Steve, I think I'll turn it back to you as far, oh, championship standards. I should have sent something out to Rich Hart last year, was supposed to take over as far as the men's standards are concerned for indoors and outdoors. And Carolyn from Quinnipiac was supposed to do the women. So that's something that we can get to at a later time. So Steve, I'll turn it back to you for anything else you want to add to this thing.
Well, first, appreciate it, Erwin, and want to open it up, make sure that, if there are any questions, certainly people feel free to interject. And for our new website, we'll turn it over to Ruben, and he can talk a bit about that. Hopefully folks have had a chance to get onto it and see it, and we'll pick up from there. Ruben?
Thanks, Steve. First, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. I joined NEICAAA last fall. I currently work as an assistant athletics AD at UMass Lowell. One of my goals within the first couple of months joining NEICAAA was to work on improving both the marketing and communications for NEICAAA. And from many conversations with the e-board, one of the things that we thought really needed to get a lot of work done was on the website as a starting point. I want to thank Pete Schroeder for all his work in providing me with the necessary information to help me move forward with that. And over the course of the past 6 months, we've done a lot of different improvement on the website with the goal of bringing in more resources for all stakeholders, whether it's institutions, student athletes, coaches, parents. We want to be able to provide more resources that NEICAAA has provided in the past. So I'm not sure if all of you have had a chance to take a look at the website, but I did want to show just a few things that we have done on the website. As you can see from your screen, is a completely remodeled website with information, latest news, indoor sections, cross-country, outdoor sections. We have an About Us here where you can see how unique our association is by being able to have Division 1, 3, and 3, 2 and 3. We have a rich history, and we want to be able to use that for our marketing as an association. We have 17 conferences within the association. We've had 27 Olympic gold medals, and everything is listed on our website. We have some pretty cool new stuff that changes how the association is viewed both internally and externally. And on that note, I also want to thank Larry Newman. I've worked with him over the past couple of months to get a lot of the records from NEICAAA updated online. For each of our seasons now, we'll be able to have more information. For example, for cross country, we have compiled several results from the past. Now you can go on our cross country page. You can look up every individual winner, team winner, men's and women's top 5, dating back from 1912, and it's all listed on our page. And we will do the same for both indoor track and outdoor track. We believe that tradition and the history of NEICAAA is very important on how we market ourselves. So we want to make sure that we have all of our information up to date whenever a record gets broken, or a new facility record, or whether it's a European record. We want to record all of that, because by doing that, we are improving our competition at our meets, which hopefully we're able to draw better competition from year to year. The other thing that I do want to touch base on is our news section. We want to be able to promote our membership. So every school, we want to be able to write stories on whether it's your student athletes, whether it's a feature story on a coach who's retiring, or whether it's a record that's been broken by your school, or even our championships. We want to be able to do previews, photos, results, anything like that. So when you go on the on the new NEICAAA website, there's a sign up link on the right side. Whenever there's any story that's published on the website, you should be receiving it through your email. With that said, overall, the website was very cost effective for us and is very easy for us to be able to maintain. But going into the future, I think we have a lot of plans. This is sort of just, the beginning of what we would like to do. But I thought it would be a great start for us to improve the website. I'm open to any suggestions from anyone. Feel free to email me if there's something that you see that's wrong on the website. I am the main contact person. My goal is to keep improving the association's both communications and marketing through the years, and hopefully we will do most of that, at least for this year. So I'll send it back to you, Steve.
Thanks, Ruben. I appreciate that. And again, just want to thank Ruben publicly for the work that he has put into this over the last few months this summer. I think it's an important first step in our process here as we continue to find ways that we can be a value add as an association to all of you and your institutions. And along those lines, folks may remember at the last convention, we had voted a change in a position from a press steward to an assistant commissioner. We likely see a great deal of work ahead of us here as we continue to refine our championship experience for all of you and for student athletes. We've asked Steve Itonis, and he's accepted to serve in the position as assistant commissioner. I wanted to note that here today. Erwin, at this point, I'd like to turn it over to kind of our new item, any new items for discussion that the membership might have.
Steve, if I can just interject for a moment. One of the things I forgot to mention was the finances. I send out usually at the beginning of the summer the entire financial outlook to the athletic directors, which includes a breakdown of all the expenses for each portion of the budget, whether it's administration, indoors, outdoors, or cross country, and of course the auditor's report on the finances. Obviously, it's just too much to send out to the athletic directors and all the coaches. So if you're interested in the further breakdown, you can certainly ask me. I can send it out to you again, or just see your AD, and you can get a more detailed picture of what the finances have been for the past year. I did include as an attachment the actual balance sheet where it shows you how much we took in and how much we spent for each portion of the season and how much we have on hand. Just in case you're not familiar with it, we have around $35,000, and so far we've received about $14,000 in dues this year. So we're in pretty good financial shape, and barring a catastrophe, we should be able to manage and handle things throughout the rest of the year, regardless of the due situation or how it is finally resolved. So financially, we're in good shape, and hopefully we should continue that way. So Steve, I'll turn it back to you.
Sure, and I think probably the most pressing question for folks is what the indoor championship will look like. And as everybody knows in this world, we just don't know the answer to that yet. We're continuing to, as Erwin alluded to, speak with Sherman, understand what we'll be able to do.
Well, we have it. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Erwin.
We have it scheduled. Once again, there'll be the high school coaches are being very well. Let's say that they want that place to be only for high school athletics, and whether you like it or not, the legislation which authorized the establishment of the Reggie Lewis Center puts the high school coaches in direct control of the facility. So if they want to throw us out, they can. Hopefully, Sherman Hart will look after us and make sure that we're well settled. But there was an attempt last year, as you know, to make us homeless. So And being homeless myself now, I understand that feeling. But anyways, right now it is scheduled. We just don't know what we will be allowed to do. I've heard all kinds of statements about running every other lanes, about high jumpers and pole vaulters having their own blankets to put in the pit and jump and then take it off, and the next guy does it, so, or the next woman does it. So, I mean, I just don't know where we are or what's going to happen. So hopefully it's still early in the year. It's only September, and we're not talking about, participating until the end of January. So we'll have a better outlook on that regard. But that's where we stand there. And outdoors, I'm sure, I'm hoping that it shouldn't be a problem. So in that regard, I think we're in good shape.
Thanks, Erwin. I know Larry Newman, wanted to give Larry an opportunity to speak. I know he had a message for the coaches.
Thank you, Steve. Good morning, everyone. I never thought, Stephen, and thank you for your input this morning. I never thought I'd see the day when anyone would oversee Irwin, but apparently that's happened, and I guess that's a good thing. Thank you, Irwin, for your continued leadership here with the organization, as you have done so for many years. I have during the last 3 months or so, been working closely with Ruben Sanker to fill in some blank spaces on the website. As you can imagine, there is a lot of history, a tremendous amount of history here within the NEICAAA, and I am working as diligently as possible to put all that history together, and so we can get it up and running for everyone to view. For the coaches that I have pestered online for the last 3-4 months, year or so, I do appreciate your efforts in getting back to me. Small things, but I think it's things we need to be preserved here within the NEICAAA. So I am just, I'm thrilled that we can go forward. Ruben and I have talked. There seems to be a lot of good plans ahead for both getting information onto the website, how to make it more user-friendly for the public. And I think with those regards, it's given me a lot of motivation to even dig deeper. So I do appreciate that from everybody, and to Pete Shooter for his diligent work in the previous issues of the website. I'd just like to make a quick mention here to the coaches. There's just a couple things I have on the agenda. If I'm allowed to continue, I'll just be brief. The list and record information updates that I sent out last week on the all-time performances at Franklin Park, men and women, I may need some help to fill in some of the data that I was missing, the year in school next to the athlete's name, as well as the native country and any foreign exchange student. So I'm missing some stuff. If you have it, you want to help me fill it in, that'll be great. Coaches, newspapers, and SIDs. I like to know what newspapers cover your particular school in the circulation area. That would be great, so I can complete my media list, which I have. And when something happens, I make use of my media list to send out bulletins, press releases on what's happening within the NEICAAA. I would also like the coaches to make note to your SIDs that if I'm not on their mailing list for any track and field cross-country releases, to please put me on nettrack@aol.com. That's important because once I get stuff from them, then I can follow up on it. I am on some SID's mailing list, but I don't think I'm on everyone. Let me just see here 1 second. Yes, on the continuing to do a lot of research on the NEICAA all-time list, indoors and outdoors for many events. I still have a long way to go, but in addition, there are lists, other lists, rankings and records that the coach coaches might like to see. If you can let me know, I would appreciate that. The NEICAA indoor and outdoor track data and statistics are constantly being worked on. I will start passing along some of the updated information and requests by mid-October. In the meantime, I will concentrate updating some cross-country data during the next month or so. Just two last things here quickly. The need for Division 1, 2, and 3 all-time indoor and outdoor records for men and women here within the NEICAA. I've just completed the all-time records for men and women indoors. Those are the complete all-time records. Now, I think we need to break those down further so that I can have all-time records for both Division 1, 2, and 3. We can't leave out Division 2 and 3. They're important, a great part of our organization. So down the road, the research that I will be looking to do is fill in some all-time records for Division 2 and 3. It'll take time, but it certainly can be done. And the other thing, lastly, before I leave you, I think the coaches should maybe get together and put together a small records committee. The committee won't have to do anything. I can do most of the work. It's very simple. So when we have an all-time New England record, indoors or outdoors, I will recognize it. I'm constantly looking at results. I will inform the members of the committee. They then can agree with it or whatever. And then we will take a vote at the end of the season, make sure the records are up to date, and then we will vote on it. And prior to the annual convention, we will submit it to the committee and we can go from there. And hopefully they will get approved. I would think 3 to 6 people on this committee. Again, no heavy lifting. I can do the work. I'll let the coaches know on the committee when the records are set. And I would think Division 1, 2, and 3 should be represented. If you had 3 committee members, if you had 6, that would allow for Division 1, 2, and 3 men and women. So that's my brief say for now. Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Erwin, for your time and patience. I appreciate it. And thanks to Ruben and all the other members on the committee, John Copeland and Kristen Morwick. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Larry. I appreciate that update. So, at this point, we've had, we've spoken to you quite a bit here for the first half an hour, and recognize it's a membership association. I want to turn it over to all of you to see if there's any new items for discussion, anything you'd like to bring up for consideration at this point.
That's why everybody loves Zoom meetings.
It's like to be a professor in a classroom. Go ahead, Karen.
I said, this is why everybody loves Zoom meetings. I've heard some feedback in regards to officials and the officials, kind of organization, what they're going to be allowed and not allowed to do. I know it's kind of premature talking about the indoor championships, but is that something that we're going to try to get ahead of?
Karen, what do you mean by that? As far as
on one of our Northeast 10 conference calls, it was brought to the attention that anybody that's in a high-risk category can opt out of being indoors in terms of officiating, being a high-risk candidate myself. But I just didn't know, there was some talk in the NE10 about opening up some of the more menial positions, and how we could overcome that challenge should it present itself. Because it's, it is an aging population, and speaking to some that I know, there's a big concern about going indoors.
Well, there's a situation there that I guess I'm high risk, and I would personally feel offended if you told me that I no longer could officiate because I'm a moron or something. It's my choice to officiate, and if I want to take that chance, or I want to climb up on a ladder and fix my roof, that's my decision. It's probably not practical to do so, but once again, thank you for the warning, but I want to clean my gutters. So
No, we had heard this, we had heard that the officials had said that. It wasn't me. I'm high risk too.
I know that, but I'm just saying we've had the same thing. I've had this with the Coast Guard Auxiliary and the Coast Guard itself, as far as they're sending out all kinds of directives as to whether you can do things or not. And my feeling has always been, hey, that's my decision. Thank you for your guidance, and thank you for the circumstances. But if I chose to do something, I expect to be able to do it without as long as it's legal, without your interference. So I would take umbrage with something like that.
Right.
It's certainly something that we need to be aware of, Karen, as we look to figure out how we can provide a championship opportunity in the indoor season. There is so much that is unknown at this point that I've heard similar in conversations that I've had across the Northeast 10 in particular. But I think it's something that we'll have some more clarity provided to us, hopefully in the coming months, giving us enough time if we need to react accordingly to fill an officiating crew. But I just don't know that we have enough information now to provide any concrete answers, other than an acknowledgement that I've heard the same thing, and it's something that we have to be cognizant of in our planning.
Most of this comes from a liability situation and litigation. Everyone's trying to, prevent being sued because of situations like that. But I think that's where most of this comes from.
With the assumption that we're able to have an indoor meet, but possibly not being able to hold it at the Reggie Lewis Center, should we have some people looking into alternate sites for a championship?
Erwin, do you want to?
Yes, I think the important thing is to have it. The fact that whether it's a flat track or a 200-meter track or not is probably insignificant compared with the thought of just not having it at all. So yes, there are sites that could be available, and I intend to look into it further.
Thank you.
Erwin, one thing we didn't discuss was the possibility, if the spring allows it, to have a spring convention. I'm not sure if we want to discuss that at this point.
Yes, I think it would be most advisable to consider that and to have one. That constitutionally, all we need is a couple of people to authorize it, and it's a done deal. And hopefully, we can meet in person and sort of celebrate coming back together again with a good meal. Unfortunately, when we finish today, we're going to have to go our own ways and buy our own coffee. So let's hope that in the spring we can do that and to add the sociable aspects to and the camaraderie that we all appreciate and look forward to. And one more thing in that regard, I know if the schools are not viable as far as a get-together is concerned, and if the state allows it, we could use my yacht club here. We have a nice banquet hall, and it will certainly be available if no other school came forward for a meeting.
Anything else for the good of the group? Certainly know and recognize the importance, Coach, as you mentioned, of trying to find a venue so that we can offer a championship opportunity. We'll begin to work on that and keep everybody, comprised and abreast of any updates that we get there. I know we'll also be reaching out for the working group that I alluded to in the beginning of the convention here at 10 o'clock. Anything else for the good of the group today?
Steve, Mike Salem from UMass Dartmouth. I just wanted to check and see, looking at the balance sheet from last year to this year, we never spent any of the money on the outdoor championship this past year. It nearly doubled the size of the carryover from one year to the next, which I don't think that's the purpose of the organization, is to be carrying all that money over. I don't know if we need to discuss, what that should be used for in the future or how that should be appropriated going forward.
I agree, and I've always felt that it's ridiculous to have this kind of a bank account. However, if we're looking forward to having a meet at the new facility, if you look at the paperwork, last year's meet cost us $25,000 indoors. Judging from the reports that I've received from AJ with the New Balance facility, that cost is going to be doubled. So if the meet at BU, if the meet at Reggie was $25,000, the meet at the New Balance is going to be $50,000. And once again, I'm hoping it wouldn't be that high, but it could be. I know as far as the rental is concerned, he's talking at least $20,000 just for the rental alone. So it might be nice to have a cushion to go into that situation and then decide where we're going to go and whether raising of dues is a possibility or even practical to do so. So I agree that it's ridiculous to carry this kind of a budget, this kind of a surplus around. But once again, we don't know where our future lies, and might be nice to have it for at least a year or so, just to make sure we can make the decisions that are required.
Certainly, I would agree with what everyone said, and it's not the intent of the association, Mike, as you mentioned. Unexpected with the cancellation of the outdoor championship and of course the cross-country championship. And I think our responsibility is to put it back into this association, things like the new website. I do think it's advisable to be cautious this year with our expenses as we start to understand what the year will bring. And Erwin mentioned the New Balance facility. That's another good point of conversation for future discussion. But I appreciate you bringing it up. And certainly open to, if others have thoughts, please feel free to share.
Just to add on to what one of the things just to add on to what I said, while I certainly understand, the New Balance facility and its opening, and us wanting to be able to get in there for the indoor championship is something that we need to plan for, and that's something we're going to have to deal with financially going forward. I think you don't want to be able to just have that money, sitting there up until then. I know that, I've already had conversations with my AD asking why I'm paying dues to this organization this year. And I'm sure that that's going to be true for a lot of other schools, not just mine. So I think we need to be able to justify, what we're paying in here this year, and knowing that going forward what we're trying to do, and have a real plan for that. The New Balance facility obviously it looks like it's going to be a great facility, and it's going to be really neat. But we need to, just because it's the nicest facility, we need to look at the cost of that and whether or not that this organization that makes sense for. Looking at the participation at the indoor meet, with where it's currently constituted in the schedule, I mean, you know, I don't know why D3s would pay into that to be able to try to have that be there. You know, the number of D3s don't really participate in that meet anymore because of the schedule changes that we've made over the past several years. So, you know, it's just, you know, I understand why as an organization we need to be looking that way. But, you know, it might be pushing some people away.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, and appreciate you saying that. And Erwin, it looks like you'd like to say something.
No, I think it's been said. Everyone has, you know, opinions, and certainly I agree with the fact that we have too much money. So it's a case of where you want to spend it and what you want to do with it. And as far as the dues are concerned, having been a coach and an administrator, I know that when you don't spend money in one year, it's taken away the next year. So that doesn't mean you just spend it recklessly. It just means that it's good to have the potential to participate in a situation without having to worry about the added finances. So,
Coach, to your comment about your administration asking why, you know, you're paying into the association this year, know that that is a conversation that we've had in how we move forward with our dues this year. With the cross-country meet being canceled, that's certainly a significant portion and element of why, you know, folks pay their membership, is to have access to championship opportunities. We didn't want to do anything too quickly without really knowing what the indoor experience would be like before we reached out to folks with any sort of formal decision. But no, it is a conversation. You know, Kristen brought it up as well in a recent conversation that the executive board had, and something that we will have to address as we get a better handle on, you know, what we can offer for an indoor experience and outdoor championship this year with COVID-19.
Yeah, thank you to the executive board, you know, for having that discussion. I appreciate that.
Recognize it's a very real concern for everybody this year.
Steve, can you tell me what other conferences are doing, like the ECAC, IC4As, Atlantic 10? Are they still charging dues this year, or are they calling a moratorium on it?
John, I don't know the answer to that. It's certainly one that I can look into, but I don't know the answer to that. Others may.
I did ask the IC4A administrator as to what they were doing with regarding to dues, and he said that they hadn't sent out bills yet. But when I told him that we had, he said he's going to send out bills himself now. So, I don't know whether I opened up a sleeping dog or not, but anyways, that's where it is. I know this much, and I think it's important to realize that we're not going to, you know, recklessly spend money, and we're not going to recklessly go after people, especially if there's no competition involved. You know, we're going to try to do what's best for the association and what's best for what makes fiscal sense to allow us to continue. So right now, it's too early to make any decisions, and I think in a few months or so we'll be in a much better outlook as far as knowing where we're going and what we're going to do and what we should do with our finances.
Steve, my question, next question would be, at the executive committee meeting yesterday, we had quite a bit of conversation about membership and schedules and all that. Do we want to get into that conversation again or not?
Yeah, John, I think certainly this is a great time to bring that up if you want to share a bit of your perspective. I know Kristen is on as well.
Okay. I think the primary concern that we had was the status of the Division III schools in the association, and how they feel somewhat disenfranchised from the association. And I think it should be noted that the first outdoor championship was held at a Division III school. So, anybody from Division III who feels disenfranchised, I think that's not a good thing. I would like to move to try to make sure everybody feels wanted. Relative to the schedule of February 1st, I think everybody thinks that is a lousy date, but even after our conversation yesterday, I went back and reviewed the possibilities of weekends, and when the NCAA went to a conference governance structure, that really changed the perspective of most schools, that rather than being regionally oriented like New England, they became conference oriented, and frankly, we became conference whores, and that's not helping us as a solid historic institution. So I'd like to see what we can do to put a better taste in the mouths of the Division III people.
And one of the things that we'd also spoken about yesterday was, knowing that we likely can't solve anything here today, is putting that working group together with Division I, II, and III membership to determine how we can best serve everybody. And I look forward to that. And anyone who's interested in being on that group, please feel free to reach out to Erwin or I.
Steve, I might just add, sort of finalizing this discussion. I can't see everyone involved in here, but I notice that we have an audience of 73 people, which I think speaks well for the interest of the association. The fact that people would take time out to subject themselves to this unique experience means that we certainly have people interested in promoting and pursuing and keeping our organization going. So that's very encouraging.
Erwin, I'd also say Zoom is the reason for that. It's the access to it, where driving to Holy Cross for a lot of people at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday would be pretty difficult. So something to consider.
Steve, could I interject something here?
Sure. Go ahead, Larry. Yes.
Yeah. From the non-coaching point of view, as I mentioned earlier, I do realize the importance of Division II and Division III to our structure here in New England. And I want to bring more of their data to the website. And while some of it is broken down, what I've gotten into thus far, much more can be done to put data up there from the Division II, Division III schools. I know Halston Taylor at MIT has done a terrific job with some of the data he's put up with Division III schools. And there are other schools like that. So from the non-coaching point of view, but from the public relations point of view, and perhaps sponsorship even, I do want to get into more of the Division II and Division III history and make sure that we make it available to everyone who wants to take a look at that. Thank you.
Steve, can I bring up a quick question? And again, I know this is, pie in the sky at very least right now. But as we're talking about the New England Championship, et cetera, I think most of us are still, in this realm of how do we even have indoor, and if so, how in the world does that get structured with a variety of campuses and limitations, et cetera? So do we have any sort of communication in terms of a body via Division 1, 2, and 3 about who's hosting, not even who's hosting, who foresees an opportunity to even have a meet? If so, do we start structuring out how that works within the structure of the university itself in bringing people to campus, et cetera? We start putting these wheels in motion now versus when we get a thumbs up from the NCAA or whatever come January, because at that point it's a bit too late. So, for example, myself, Coach Copeland, we have a call tomorrow with our conference where they're talking about moving forward with an indoor championship. I'm not quite sure how, but I'll find out. So that sparked me to think, well, gosh, we should, as a body, know what everyone's doing. And if you can have a meet, and it seems to be, I don't know how that's possible, but if you do, it's going to be like, hey, really old school dual meet type scenario. So have we had any thoughts or discussions regarding this with the variety of institutions, primarily Division III, that have indoor facilities available to them?
Coach, are you talking, first, great idea. And just for clarification, are you talking about those that would be able or believe they would be able to participate in a championship or host a track meet indoors, or both?
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. Great. So, I think hearing that, we can put together a survey, we can get it out to everybody and start to gather that information. So we have that's step one. And you're right, this is the time to begin that planning. So we are prepared for when we, hopefully everyone does get a thumbs up that says they can go ahead and compete. And I know we mentioned it earlier, looking at a number of different facilities in different states as well, just to provide all of our options. So step one will be a survey, and we can certainly get working on that and get that out to everybody fairly quickly.
Hey guys, this is Julie Heidi from Boston College. Just to go off what Coach Jackson was saying, I was thinking a similar thing as if there were going to be teams hosting much smaller meets than the championship. I know we're focused on an indoor championship and an outdoor championship, but I can tell you from our work this past fall and summer trying to get even a schedule for a cross-country meet, it has become a much more regional competition within even our conference. For example, Virginia and North Carolina schools are only racing each other. They're staying down Virginia and North Carolina. So it's even been a challenge getting a cross-country race in the Northeast. Most schools are not racing cross-country, but when it comes to indoor track and outdoor track, I wouldn't be surprised if we look at a significantly more regional model moving forward. Even if we're all allowed to compete, they're going to be smaller races, and hopefully different schools will be able to have dual meets, tri-meets, things like that. So even aside from what a championship format would look like with that many students, smaller meets would be really, really helpful. I think, at least from our standpoint, trying to get somebody to compete against even a dual meet each week is going to be important. I'm sure BU doesn't know what their responsibility is and what they'll be able to do. I don't know if there's a BU person on this call, but it would be helpful, I think, not just championship, but small meets if you wanted to limit numbers and things like that.
I think just to piggyback off of what Julie just said, one of the other things we have to consider is even with the number of indoor facilities that we have that might be available to us to be able to have indoor meets every weekend, what sort of officials crew are we going to be able to put together to be able to cover that number of meets over the course of the season? Especially if they're able to opt out, or older, at-risk populations are able to opt out of that. you know, us being able to make sure that we have enough officials to be able to even cover, you know, the 3 or 4 Boston schools being able to host an indoor meet or indoor meets at their respective facilities in one weekend, whether or not that's even viable. So that's just something else, you know, and that goes back to that discussion that we've had earlier about officiating.
We'll certainly go back and step one, get that, Coach, as you had suggested, a survey together and get it out to everybody so we can start to have those conversations and think creatively as to what we can do to provide an experience for you all. Erwin, it's a good thing you have Steve on board.
Yeah, yeah.
While we're on the topic of venues, where are we in thought process on our outdoor venue? Seems like that's a championship that would certainly appear to have a much greater chance of occurring than our indoor, and it might behoove us to at least start planning on that one and seeing if there are institutions out there that are willing and, probably more importantly, allowed to host. And I know that's a long ways off and there's a whole lot of variables at play here, but I think that's a conversation we should probably be starting now rather than later.
To that end, Tremaine or Dave Fraser, are you on board right now?
I think we both are. This is Tremaine. Dave, are you on? Okay, I think Dave might have a little bit more information as to where Northeastern is from a facility standpoint right now, since that is one of his primary responsibilities here. However, what I can say, and it's, you know, it's a great conversation that everyone's bringing up, is that in my talks with our development people, you know, that we do foresee outdoor being a lot more feasible. They haven't said no yet. However, I know Northeastern as a university is going to be very specific about the testing protocols anybody who comes to visit or utilize the facilities are doing. And so I know from us at a conference level, the conference is trying to get on the same page of testing and how testing works with competitions. And so seeing how, you know, the NEICAAA is a conference in and of itself, is that something that we've thought about or talked about in terms of, because I know at Northeastern that might come into play in being able to utilize our facility would be the testing protocols and those being efficient. That each university is utilizing prior to. So I don't know if that will add a potential wrinkle that may make it more difficult to utilize our facility, but they're still open to the idea.
Thanks, Tremaine, and we can certainly connect with Dave on that. And I imagine testing will be we haven't talked about testing for the indoor meet. I appreciate you bringing it up. I know that that's a challenge for all campuses, navigating the NCAA best practices and then aligning with individual institution protocols.
Erwin and Steve, just another random thought, circling back to Coach Salem's point regarding the budget and regarding the commentary with the older officials. Might this, via Steve and USATF New England, might this be an opportunity to incentivize work? I mean, listen, we got a lot of people that are out of work. Like, this is an opportunity for some of those folks who don't have, you know, that opportunity. This is an opportunity to generate some finances for themselves, and quite frankly, some of the middle population who this might be a supplementary thing. Obviously, again, this is pie in the sky, you know, who knows what it would really yield them. But again, like just creating a new pathway for us to get more people involved who may have had track and field history to get back into the fold. Just we know we've had older officials. Like I feel like officials have been around for quite some time, and I don't want to put their health at risk, but it's also an opportunity for us to introduce some the next wave of officials, if you will. So just again, a random thought, not a push. That's the thought.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways that can work. Certainly, it is a pathway to some extra income. It also can work to help those schools that are hosting meets to look at their expenses when there are some longer meets and you're paying an officials association a flat rate plus overtime. There are some tasks, as I think Karen was alluding to, that you can get newer and novice officials, as long as they're schooled a bit, to take over. Now, I work regularly at MIT, and the MIT student athletes are operating the laser measuring equipment in the throws with no issues at all. So it's not a secret society on how you learn to officiate. It may also work to help bring in some alumni involvement at different schools which are hosting. But I put a note down here that's one thing that I'll work on in the coming months, is to some introduction to officiating, how newer officials can be integrated with more experienced officials, and increasing the officials' base of involvement. All the local officials groups, Eastern, Central, Western, the numbers are shrinking, and it's not only for age, it's for other reasons too, but it's something that has to be addressed.
Steve, back to you.
Well, sir, I think everyone at this point, we want to make sure that everyone's had a chance to share anything that they'd like. Certainly a number of action items for the executive board and Erwin and Steve, for like 7 of us to get together and get working on. We'll be in touch. We'll send you email updates and pull that working group together, do some work simultaneously on the indoor championship, and obviously start to continue to explore what an outdoor championship might look like, knowing that there are a lot of variables that are outside of our control. So I appreciate the conversation today. If folks have anything that they'd like to bring up, feel free to reach out to me, email or phone. Everything comes to my cell phone now in this work from home world, so feel free to reach out at any time.
Steve, one more thing. This is recorded, so if someone who missed the meeting and wanted to play back, how would they go about doing it?
Ruben actually just posted that in the chat.
So, Steve, today's convention is being recorded. It will be posted on the website, NEICAAA.net/convention. So we will have a link there for the 2020 convention with minutes, attendance, and the recording for anyone who wants to watch it later.
Sounds good.
Anything else? I think it'll be a good convention if we can give everybody 24 minutes back in their day and get off of Zoom. Erwin, I think we can adjourn at this point.
I'd make a motion to that effect. Not hearing any objections. Meeting adjourned, Steve?
Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Be well.